The 7-year-old girl overheard the guards speaking in Russian, and what they said chilled her to the bone. They were going to assassinate the Iron Emperor that very night, and no one, absolutely no one, except for her knew it. Abigail, most commonly called Abby, was the kind of child that just faded into the background. In the seemingly endless corridors of Blackwood Estate, she moved like a shadow amongst shadows. The servants would brush past her without even a glance downwards. The guards openly discussed secret matters, as if she were nothing more than a piece of the furniture. And perhaps, in their eyes, she was. After all, who would ever pay attention to the daughter of a mere kitchen maid? If you've ever felt invisible, like the world just passes you by, then you understand perfectly what Abby felt every single day. Her mother, Eleanor, had been working at Blackwood Estate for 2 years now. Ever since Abby's father passed away, it was all they had. A small, cramped room at the back of the servants' quarters. Meals cobbled together from kitchen scraps, and the constant promise that someday things would get better. But Abby wasn't like the other children. She held a secret, one that no one in Blackwood Estate knew. Before she passed, her grandmother had taught her Russian. Whole nights filled with stories whispered in the ancient tongue, lullabies that spoke of wolves and frozen forests, words that became a part of her, as natural as breathing. Abby spoke Russian as fluently as any child born in St. Petersburg, and in the Iron Emperor's estate, where no one even dreamed a poor girl could understand a language beyond basic English. It made her invisible in a whole new and powerful way. That afternoon in late autumn, Abby was doing what she always did. Hidden behind a marble column in the East Wing, she was sketching on a scrap of paper she'd found in the trash. She liked to draw the robins she saw flitting outside the window. Sometimes she'd draw her mother's face, smiling. Anything to help her forget the emptiness in her stomach and the crushing loneliness in her small heart. That's when she heard the voices. 2 guards stopped just a few feet from where she was concealed. They wore the characteristic black coats of the Iron Emperor's security detail. But something about them was different. The way they glanced around before speaking, the low, urgent tone of their voices. And then they began speaking in Russian. Abby froze. If this story is already grabbing you, believe me, we're just getting started. What you're about to hear changed this little girl's life forever. The first guard, a man with broad shoulders and a jagged scar on his chin, said something that made Abby's heart stop cold. Tonight. During the meeting with the northern leaders, Victor will give the signal. The second guard, younger, seemed to hesitate. What if someone suspects something? No one suspects a thing in this place, the first guard replied with a sneer. The Iron Emperor thinks he's safe. He thinks everyone fears him too much to dare cross him. But after tonight, there won't be an Iron Emperor. Abby felt her legs trembling violently. She pressed her back against the cold column, barely daring to breathe. Her 7-year-old mind struggled to process what she had just heard. These men were going to kill the Emperor, the most powerful man in the realm, the man everyone feared and respected, the man she sometimes saw from a distance, striding through the corridors with his stone-cold expression and those piercing amber eyes that seemed to look right through you. The first guard continued, his voice a venomous hiss. Victor confirmed. 3 men in the meeting room, 2 at the exits. The poison in the wine will be ready by 9. Even if he suspects something, he won't have anywhere to run. Abby clapped her hands over her mouth to stifle a gasp. The second guard chuckled softly. And the blame will fall squarely on the northern envoy. Perfect. Two birds, one stone. They continued down the hallway, their polished boots echoing on the marble floor. Abby remained paralyzed for several minutes, her heart pounding so hard she was sure the entire estate could hear it. And that's when she saw it. A piece of paper had fallen from the first guard's pocket. It lay there on the floor, just a few steps from where she had been hiding. With trembling hands, Abby crawled out of her hiding place and snatched up the paper. It was written in Russian. A list of names, times, and at the very top, a single word she knew all too well: death. That piece of paper was proof of everything, and it was now clutched tightly in her tiny hand. Abby ran. She ran through the corridors she knew so well, those secret passageways only the children of the servants discovered. She needed to find her mother. She needed to tell someone. Eleanor was in the laundry room, folding crisp white linens with mechanical movements. When she saw Abby burst in, breathless and pale, her face instantly registered concern. "Abby, what happened? Are you all right? Mom?" Abby grabbed her mother's skirt tightly. "I heard. The guards. They're going to." But before she could finish, Miss Hawthorne, the head housekeeper, swept into the laundry room like a hurricane. "Eleanor, the linens in the North Suite need changing immediately. The Northern envoy has arrived early. Move, move!" "Mom," Abby tried again, but Eleanor was already being ushered out of the room. "Later, sweetheart," Eleanor said over her shoulder. "You can tell me later. Stay here and don't leave until I get back." And just like that, Abby was left alone again. Invisible, ignored, holding in her hands proof of an assassination plot, with no one to listen. She stared down at the paper in her hand. The Russian letters seemed to dance before her tear-filled eyes. What could a 7-year-old do against armed men, against a plan that seemed so meticulously organized? But then she remembered the stories her grandmother used to tell. Stories of little people who did great things, of mice who saved lions, of children who faced monsters. "You are stronger than you think, little one," her grandmother used to say, small on the outside, but with the heart of a bear. Abby wiped the tears from her eyes with the back of her hand. If no one would listen to her words, she would have to make someone listen. And there was only one person whose orders no one could ignore: the Iron Emperor himself. The idea was so absurd it almost made her laugh. A 7-year-old child, the daughter of a kitchen maid, barging into the meeting room of the most feared man in the kingdom to warn him of a plot against his life. It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly what she was going to do. Abby carefully folded the paper and tucked it into the pocket of her dress. Then she grabbed her pencil and the piece of paper she had been sketching on and began to draw something different. She began to draw the faces of the two guards. She had an excellent memory for faces. Her grandmother always said it was a gift, and now that gift would be put to use. She drew the man with the scar on his chin. She drew the younger one with his beady eyes and crooked nose. She drew the black coats and the gold insignia on their lapels. If no one would believe her words, maybe, just maybe, they would believe her drawings. The sun began to set beyond the windows of Blackwood Estate, casting long, ominous shadows across the land. Shadows stretched long across the hallways, and somewhere within Blackwood Estate, Maya knew. The men in dark coats were setting their plan into motion. Their target, 9 o'clock. She had to tell someone. But who would believe an invisible child? Maya tried to talk to the other staff. She tried to find anyone who would stop to listen for more than 5 seconds, but everyone was far too preoccupied. The imminent gala demanded perfection, Hors d'oeuvres had to be plated with precision, and the wine must be chilled just so. No one had time for a child's fantasies. Fantasies. That's what they called them. Oh, Eleanor. You and your stories. The head chef had sighed when she tried to warn him. Go play somewhere else. I haven't a moment for games, the housekeeper snapped when Maya tugged at her sleeve. Children are not permitted in this wing, a security guard had barked when she approached the officials' quarters. Each rejection was like a tiny dagger to her heart. Each dismissive glance confirmed what she'd always known. She was invisible. She didn't matter. Her voice had no value, but the Iron Emperor's life did, and if she was the only one who could save him, then she had to find a way. The clock tower chimed 8. 1 hour until the gala, 1 hour until the poison, 1 hour until everything ended. Maya gazed down the grand hall that led to the royal wing. Guards stood sentinel at every entrance. Staff scurried back and forth with purpose. And there, at the very end, the gilded doors that led to the Iron Emperor's meeting room. Impossible for anyone else. But Maya wasn't just anyone. She was invisible. And sometimes, being invisible was the greatest advantage one could possess. She knew every nook and cranny of Blackwood Estate, every secret passage, every forgotten corridor. There was a service tunnel used by the kitchen staff to transport supplies, a narrow passageway that ran behind the walls. It was cramped and dark, but Maya was small enough to fit. She took a deep breath, clutched the note and drawings tightly to her chest, and disappeared into the shadows. What happened next would change not only Maya's life, but the destiny of the entire kingdom. And the Iron Emperor would never forget the little girl everyone overlooked, the one brave enough to confront the impossible, because sometimes the smallest among us carry the greatest courage. The tunnel was even darker than Maya remembered. The last time she'd been down here was months ago, playing hide-and-seek with the other servants' children. Back then, it seemed like a fun adventure. Now, it felt like a descent into the unknown. She crept forward slowly, one hand trailing along the damp wall for guidance, the other pressing the papers against her chest. Cobwebs brushed against her face. Something small scurried across her feet, and she bit her lip to stifle a scream. Her heart pounded so loudly she could feel it in her ears. "What are you doing, Eleanor?" a voice inside her whispered. "You're just a child. Turn back. Turn back before it's too late." But the image of the guards, plotting poison and death, remained etched in her mind, and something stronger than fear was pushing her forward, something she couldn't quite name, but what her grandmother Hawthorne would have simply called courage, after what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Maya saw a sliver of light. The tunnel ended in a small opening concealed behind an ancient tapestry. She knew that tapestry well. It hung in the corridor that led to the Iron Emperor's private chambers. Maya nudged the tapestry aside carefully, just enough to peek through. The corridor appeared empty, but she could hear voices coming from a partially open door down the hall. Russian voices. Her blood ran cold. She recognized one of the voices. It was Victor, the man the guards had mentioned, the ringleader of the conspiracy, and he was speaking with at least 2 other people. "The glasses are already prepared," Victor was saying. "The poison is undetectable. He'll feel only a slight dizziness before he collapses. It will appear to be a heart attack." "And the loyal guards?" another voice asked. "Marcus is out of the way," Victor replied, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "I sent him to verify a false report at the South Gate. By the time he realizes he's been duped, it will be far too late." Maya felt her stomach churn. Marcus. She knew Marcus. He was one of the few guards who sometimes smiled at her when he saw her in the hallways, a kind man with sad eyes and graying hair. And now he was being used as a pawn in a deadly game. The clock chimed. 8:15, 45 minutes. Maya crept down the hallway, using every shadow, every alcove, every patch of darkness she could find. Years of being ignored had taught her how to move unnoticed. Years of being invisible were now her greatest weapon. She reached a service staircase that led to the upper floor. The meeting room was on the second floor. In the heart of Blackwood Estate, that's where the Iron Emperor would be. That's where she needed to get to. But as she placed her foot on the first step, she heard footsteps behind her. Maya turned. It was him, the guard with the scar on his chin. The same guard she had overheard plotting the assassination, and he was looking directly at her. For a moment that stretched into an eternity, they stared at each other. Maya saw recognition dawn in his eyes. He didn't recognize her as the girl who had overheard their conversation. He recognized her as the daughter of the Russian maid, the girl who spoke his language, the girl who could understand every word. "What are you doing here?" he asked in Russian, his eyes narrowing. Maya froze. Her heart hammered so loudly she could barely think. She could pretend she didn't understand. She could babble something in English and appear confused. She could. "I saw you," the guard continued, taking a step toward her. "By the pillar. This afternoon. You were there, weren't you?" "No," Maya lied, backing away. "I didn't." But her hands tightened on the papers against her chest. The papers that contained the Russian note and the drawings of the conspirators. The guard saw the movement and smiled, a smile that was anything but kind. "What have you got there, little one?" "Nothing." He took another step forward. Maya retreated until she felt the cold wall against her back. There was nowhere to go. She was trapped. "You know," he said softly, crouching down to her level, "curious children sometimes disappear. It happens all the time in big estates like this. They fall down wells. They get lost in the dungeons. Nobody notices a little girl, nobody sees." Fear exploded in Maya's chest, but along with it came something else. Anger. A hot, bright anger she didn't know she possessed. What would you have done? Comment below. If you were in Maya's place, cornered by an assassin, with proof of a crime in your hands, and no one to help, what would you do? Maya did the only thing she could do. She screamed. Not just any scream. A scream. A scream tore through the hallway, echoing off the stone walls, startling birds into flight outside. A scream that held all the fear, all the anger, all the frustration of years of being ignored. The guard tried to cover her mouth, but Maya bit his hand with every ounce of strength she possessed. He yelled in pain and recoiled, and before he could recover, she ran. She ran like she'd never run before in her life. She flew up the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time. Her little legs burned with effort. Her heart felt like it was about to explode. Behind her, she could hear the heavy footsteps of the guard in pursuit. "Get back here," he shouted in Russian. "You're not going anywhere!" Maya turned left at the top of the stairs. The hallway split in 2 directions. One led to the guest quarters, and the other led to the meeting room. She could see the gilded doors at the end of the hall. 2 guards stood posted in front, and beyond those doors, the Iron Emperor. Maya didn't hesitate. She ran straight for the doors. The guards saw her approaching. Their faces twisted in confusion. A child running through the royal corridors wasn't something they expected to see. "Stop!" one of them ordered, reaching out a hand. But Maya was too small, too fast. She ducked down, slipped between the legs of the guard on the left, and slammed into the gilded doors with all her weight. The doors burst open, and everything stopped. Maya stumbled into the meeting room, breathless, disheveled, cobwebs in her hair, dirt on her dress. Tears of fear and exhaustion streamed down her cheeks. The room was crowded. A long table dominated the center, surrounded by men in fine suits, generals with medals pinned to their chests, aristocrats with gold rings on their fingers, and at the head of the table, in a chair that looked more like a throne, the Iron Emperor. Lord Draven Blackwood stared at her with an expression Maya couldn't decipher. His amber eyes were intense, piercing, as if they could see right through her, to her very soul. All the other men in the room looked scandalized. Some rose from their chairs. Others called for the guards. A cacophony of indignant voices filled the air. What is the meaning of this? A child in the meeting room? Guards! Guards! But the Iron Emperor raised a hand, and everything went silent. The power of that simple gesture made Maya hold her breath. One hand movement, and 10 of the most powerful men in the kingdom instantly shut up. That was what it meant to be the Iron Emperor. Draven rose from his chair. He was tall, much taller than he looked from a distance. His black suit absorbed the light, making him seem made of solidified shadows. When he took a step toward Maya, she had to fight the urge to back away. Some people are going to pause here. They're going to wonder why they keep watching. The answer is simple, because deep down, we all want to see the moment when the invisible becomes impossible to ignore. Who are you? The Iron Emperor's voice was deep, controlled. It wasn't a threat. It was just a question. But it carried the weight of someone accustomed to receiving answers. Maya opened her mouth, and then she closed it, because she realized something. If she spoke in English, the conspirators in the room, whoever they were, would know that she was just scared, a lost child. Nothing to worry about. But if she spoke in Russian, Maya looked directly into the Iron Emperor's eyes and prayed that her grandmother was right about one thing. "They're going to kill you," she said in Russian, her voice trembling but clear. "The black-coated guards, I heard everything. There's poison in the wine. Victor is the leader. They plan to make it look like a heart attack." The room erupted in confusion. Several men looked at each other uncomprehendingly. Russian. Why was the child speaking Russian? But the Iron Emperor understood every word. His eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Just a moment. And then his expression closed again, cold as marble. And Maya knew she had bet correctly. Her grandmother always said that the Blackwoods were masters of languages, that the old king spoke 7 languages fluently, and his son, it seemed, had inherited the talent. The Iron Emperor crouched down to Maya's level. His amber eyes met hers, up close. She could see things she'd never noticed before. The small lines of fatigue around his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the shadow of something that looked like loneliness. "Do you have proof?" he asked in Russian, low enough that only she could hear. Maya nodded, with trembling hands. She held out the crumpled paper. The note with the list of names and times, the word Smirt still visible at the top. The Iron Emperor took the paper. His eyes scanned the lines quickly, and then Maya saw something that scared her more than anything so far. The Iron Emperor paled. The paper trembled slightly in his hands. And Maya realized, with a shock, that it wasn't out of fear. It was out of rage. A cold, controlled rage that seemed to radiate from him in waves. "Victor," he murmured, the name coming out like a curse. "You know him?" Maya asked in Russian. "He's been my personal guard for 5 years," Draven responded, his voice so low she could barely hear it. "I trusted him with my life." Betrayal glittered in the Iron Emperor's eyes like ice under sunlight, and Maya understood something in that moment. As powerful as he was, as feared as he was, Draven Blackwood was just a man who had just found out that someone he trusted wanted him dead. Suddenly, the scarred guard burst through the door behind Maya. "Your Majesty," he was breathless, trying to appear concerned. "This child barged into the royal corridors. I was trying to be..." He stopped talking when he saw the paper in the king's hand, and when his eyes met Maya's, she saw the exact moment he realized she had succeeded. "Arrest this man," Draven ordered, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. 2 loyal guards immediately stepped forward. The scarred man tried to run, but he wasn't fast enough. In seconds, he was pinned to the ground, cursing in Russian. The Iron Emperor stood up, still holding the paper. His face was a mask of calm, but Maya could see the storm behind his eyes. "This meeting is adjourned," he announced. "Gentlemen, I ask that you remain in your seats. No one leaves this room until I order it." The aristocrats and generals exchanged confused glances, but no one dared to protest. The power in the Iron Emperor's voice left no room for questioning. "Marcus!" Draven called out. The door opened, and the grey-haired guard rushed in, clearly just arriving from his false mission at the South Gate. "Your Majesty." "What?" "Victor and his men," Draven interrupted. "Arrest them. All of them. Now." Marcus glanced at the paper in the Iron Emperor's hand, then at Maya, and finally at the scarred man being dragged from the room. Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Immediately, Your Majesty." As Marcus left, Draven turned his attention to Maya and did something that utterly surprised her. He knelt before her, not a casual dip of the knee, a formal kneeling, as if she were someone important, as if she were someone worthy of respect. "What is your name?" he asked, this time in English, so that everyone in the room could hear. "Maya," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "Maya Sokolova." The last name sparked something in the Iron Emperor's eyes, something Maya couldn't quite place at that moment, a flicker of recognition, an ancient memory struggling to surface. "Sokolova," he repeated softly. "Is Elena Sokolova your mother?" Maya nodded, completely bewildered. How did he know? Draven closed his eyes for a fleeting moment. When he opened them again, there was a different quality to his expression, something softer, almost like pain. But before he could utter a word, the doors to the room swung open once more. It was Victor. He was held in the arms of 2 guards, fighting like a cornered animal. But when he saw Maya, he ceased his struggling, his eyes locked onto her, filled with a hatred that made her involuntarily recoil. "You," he spat in Russian, "you little rat. I should have killed you when I had the chance." Draven immediately placed himself between Maya and Victor, his body forming a protective barrier. If you haven't felt chills by now, then you have no soul. Because what followed next is something Maya would never forget. "You've made a mistake, Victor," Draven said, his voice dangerously calm. "A fatal mistake." Victor laughed, a bitter sound filled with contempt. "You're weak, Blackwood, always have been. Your father would have seen through this conspiracy months ago. But you were duped by a bunch of foreigners, and it took a child to save you." "My weakness," Draven said, taking a step forward, "is that I trusted too easily. But yours is thinking that children are invisible, that they don't matter, that they can be ignored." He looked over his shoulder at Maya. "This girl has done what none of my generals, none of my advisors, none of my spies could do. She saw the truth, and she had the courage to act." Victor spat on the floor. "She's the daughter of a maid. She's nothing." Draven smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. "She is the one who saved my life. And you are nothing anymore." He nodded to the guards. "Take him to the dungeons. The trial will be tomorrow." As Victor was dragged away, still screaming threats in Russian, Draven turned back to Maya. The entire room watched in silence. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Maya shook her head. "No. Just scared." Draven nodded. Then he gazed upon the men gathered in the room. Generals, nobles, the most powerful figures in the realm. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying through the entire room, "you have witnessed something extraordinary today. A 7-year-old child, overlooked by everyone in this estate, has done what entire armies could not. She exposed a conspiracy against the crown. She saved my life." He placed his hand on Maya's shoulder. The weight was comforting. "Safe. I want all of you to look at her. I want you to remember this moment, because this girl has proven something that many of you have forgotten." He paused, letting the silence linger. "That the smallest among us can be the bravest, that those we ignore can be the most valuable, and that true nobility lies not in blood or title, but in the heart." Maya felt tears streaming down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from something she couldn't name, something warm and luminous that was spreading through her chest. For the first time in her life, someone was seeing her, really seeing her. And it wasn't just anyone. It was the Iron Emperor. The commotion in the halls of the Blackwood estate lasted for hours. Guards rushing back and forth, orders being shouted, the clang of chains and muffled protests coming from the dungeons. Maya watched it all from a corner of the meeting room, where Draven had insisted she remained. "You are safe here," he had said. "No one will harm you." Banshee believed him. Her mother arrived in a flurry, pushed forward by a guard who had located her in the laundry. Eleanor was pale, trembling, clearly convinced that her daughter had done something terrible. "Maya, what have you done? Why are you here? What?" She stopped abruptly when she saw the Iron Emperor standing beside her daughter. Her face lost all color. "Your Majesty," she whispered, dropping to her knees, "I beg your pardon. My daughter meant no offense. She's just a child. Please, have mercy." Draven raised his hand. "Rise, Ms. Sokolova." Eleanor obeyed, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Her eyes darted back and forth between Maya and the Emperor, desperately trying to understand what was unfolding. "Your daughter saved my life tonight," Draven said simply. Eleanor blinked. "What?" "There was a plot to assassinate me. The conspirators spoke Russian. unaware that anyone present could understand them. Your daughter overheard everything, and despite no one believing her, despite all the fear and danger, she found a way to warn me. Eleanor looked at Maya as if she was seeing her daughter for the very first time. "Is this true, little one?" she asked in Russian. Maya nodded. "I heard the guards, Mum. They were going to put poison in his wine. I had to do something." Eleanor pulled her daughter into an embrace so tight that Maya could barely breathe. Tears streamed down her mother's face, wetting Maya's hair. "You are so brave," she whispered. So brave. Your grandmother would be so proud." Draven observed the scene in silence, and Maya noticed that something in his expression had shifted. The usual coldness was absent. In its place was something softer, more human. "Ms. Sokolova," he said after a moment, "how long have you worked at this estate?" Eleanor pulled back from Maya, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "2 years, Your Majesty." "And before that?" "We lived in the village to the south." "My husband." She hesitated, the pain still fresh in her voice. "My husband was a soldier. He died 5 years ago." Draven grew very still. "Your husband," he said slowly. "What was his name?" "Alexei," Eleanor replied. "Alexei Sokolov." The Iron Emperor closed his eyes, and Maya saw, with utter astonishment, a single tear slide down his cheek. This story shouldn't exist. There shouldn't be a world where a 7-year-old girl needs to save a king from assassins. But this is the world we live in. And sometimes, the most unlikely stories are the most true. "I knew your husband," Draven said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Alexei Sokolov saved my life 5 years ago, in an ambush on the eastern border. He took a blade that was meant for me." Eleanor brought her hand to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. "I searched for his family," Draven continued. "For months. I wanted to thank them. I wanted to offer protection, but I was told he had no family, that he was an orphan, that—" He paused, comprehension dawning in his eyes. "Someone lied," he said softly. "Someone hid you from me." Eleanor shook her head, tears streaming freely now. "After Alexei died," she said, "some men came to our house. They said it was best if we didn't go looking for the Iron Emperor's favor, that it would be dangerous. I was afraid. Little one was so small. So we ran. We moved to the countryside. And then I came here, not knowing this was the Blackwood estate of the man my husband had saved." "Fate," Draven murmured. "Sometimes it has a cruel sense of humor." He turned to Maya, who was trying to understand everything she was hearing. Her father, a hero, a man who had saved the Iron Emperor's life, a man her mother rarely spoke about because the pain was too great. "I owe your family a debt," Draven said, looking directly into Maya's eyes. "A debt I can never fully repay. Your father died so that I might live, and now you've saved my life again." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled something out. It was a medal, golden, with the Blackwood crest embossed on its surface. A serpent coiled around a sword, the symbol of the Iron Emperor. "I gave this medal to your father," Draven said, "the day he joined my personal guard. He wore it always, never took it off." Maya stared at the medal. Something familiar about it, something she recognized, but couldn't place. And then she remembered, the pendant her mother kept in a wooden box under the bed. the pendant Eleanor touched sometimes, late at night, when she thought Maya was asleep. The pendant that had exactly the same serpent and sword. "You still have it," Draven said to Eleanor. "I can see it in your face." Eleanor nodded, unable to speak. The Iron Emperor took a deep breath. And then he did something no monarch had ever done. He knelt before Eleanor and Maya, not just bowed, knelt formally, like a subject before their queen. "I have failed you," he said. "For 5 years, you lived in poverty while I lived in luxury. For 5 years, the daughter of the man who saved my life was ignored, invisible, forgotten. That ends now." He rose and turned to the guards who were watching everything in shocked silence. "Prepare the apartments in the East Wing," he ordered, "the largest ones, overlooking the garden." The guards scrambled to obey. "Your Majesty," Eleanor began. "We can't." "You can, and you will," Draven interrupted gently. "You are my family now. It's the least I can do to honor Alexei's memory." Maya looked at her mother. Eleanor was trembling, crying, laughing, all at the same time. It was too much information to process, too much change in such a short time. And then Maya felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Draven. He knelt once more, to be at her eye level. "You were very brave today," he said. "Braver than many men I know. And I know I can't replace your father. No one can. But..." He hesitated. And for the first time, Maya saw vulnerability in his eyes. Fear of rejection, more fragile hope. "But I would like to try to be there," he continued, "for you and your mother, if you'll allow it." Maya looked at this man, the Iron Emperor, the most feared in the kingdom, the most powerful. And she saw something no one else saw. She saw a lonely man who had lost everyone he trusted. She saw someone who carried the weight of a kingdom on his shoulders. She saw someone who, just like her, knew the pain of losing loved ones. "Can you teach me to play chess?" Maya asked. Draven blinked, surprised by the unexpected question. And then, for the first time that night, he smiled, a true smile, a smile that transformed his face, softening the harsh lines, lighting up his eyes. "It would be an honor," he replied. The following months transformed Maya's life in ways she could never have imagined. On the first morning in their new apartments, Maya awoke to the sound of birds, not the distant birds she heard through the thin walls of the servants' quarters. These were right there, outside her window, in a tree that seemed to have been planted especially for them. She lay there for a long time, staring up at the high ceiling decorated with paintings of clouds and angels. She still couldn't believe it was real, that she wouldn't wake up any moment now on the thin, hard mattress, with the smell of mildew and dampness. "Mom," she called, her voice still raspy with sleep. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, dressed in new clothes that the servants had brought the night before. Ladies' clothes, not servants' clothes. Her eyes were red, as if she had cried during the night, but there was a smile on her lips. "Good morning, little one. Did you sleep well?" Maya nodded. "I dreamed about Grandma." She was smiling. Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed and brushed the hair from her daughter's face. "She would have been proud of you. So proud." That morning, they had breakfast at a real table, with china plates and silver cutlery. There was fresh fruit, warm bread, golden honey in a crystal jar. Maya ate until her stomach hurt, unable to believe that all that food was for them. And after breakfast, A servant came to fetch her. "The Emperor requests your presence in his study, Miss Maya." Miss. No one had ever called her that before. Draven's study was unlike any room Maya had ever seen. Books covered the walls from floor to ceiling. Ancient maps were spread across a massive table. And in the center of it all, a chessboard with ivory and ebony pieces. Draven was standing by the window when she entered. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, and to Maya's surprise, he smiled. "You came. You called me." "Yes, but I thought maybe you'd be tired or scared after everything that happened yesterday." Maya shook her head. "I don't get scared easily." Draven chuckled, a surprising sound, almost youthful. "No, I imagine you don't." He gestured to the chessboard. "You said you wanted to learn. Shall we begin?" And so the lessons began. She and Eleanor moved into the apartments in the East Wing. No longer a tiny room at the back of the servants' complex. Now they had 3 bedrooms, a living room with a fireplace, and huge windows that overlooked the garden where birds sang every morning. Eleanor didn't have to work as a maid anymore. Draven had insisted, but she couldn't stay idle. So she became responsible for organizing the palace's charity events. Turned out she had a natural talent for it, and Maya finally had a place every afternoon. After finishing her lessons with the tutors Mr. Blackwood, now the Iron Emperor, had hired, she would wander down to his office, and they would play chess. At first, Mr. Blackwood always won. His pieces moved with the precision of a seasoned strategist, cornering Eleanor in just a few moves. But he never gloated, never made her feel foolish. Instead, he explained each move, showed her where she had gone wrong, taught her strategies that his own father had taught him when he was a boy. He treated her with respect, with patience, and slowly. Eleanor began to improve. 3 months after her first lesson, she managed to put Mr. Blackwood in check for the very first time. She didn't win. The Emperor was still far more experienced, but the look of surprise on his face was worth more than any victory. "You caught me off guard," he said, studying the board with new eyes. "That was a clever play." "My grandmother always said, 'The best attacks come from where you least expect them,'" Eleanor replied with a small smile. Mr. Blackwood nodded slowly. "Your grandmother sounds like a very wise woman." She was. That evening, as they dined together in Eleanor and Miss Hawthorne's quarters, something happened that changed everything. Mr. Blackwood was telling a story about a trip he'd taken as a young man, about snow-capped mountains and wolves that howled at night. Eleanor listened, fascinated, absorbing every detail. And then, without thinking, she blurted out, "You tell stories just like my father used to." The silence that followed was heavy. Miss Hawthorne stopped with her fork in mid-air. Mr. Blackwood grew very quiet. Eleanor realized what she had said. Her face flushed red. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." But Mr. Blackwood raised a hand, cutting her off. His eyes were shining, but not with sadness. "Don't apologize," he said softly. That's an honor, Eleanor. One of the greatest I've ever received." Miss Hawthorne began to cry silently. Eleanor looked from one to the other, not fully understanding what had just happened. But something had shifted, something important, from that night on. Mr. Blackwood began to dine with them regularly, no longer as emperor and subjects, but as something closer to a family. A quirky, unconventional family, perhaps, but a family nonetheless. The little girl who no one had seen was now known throughout Blackwood Estate. The guards greeted her in the East Wing. The cooks saved her favorite desserts. The nobles, who once would have passed her without a second glance, now offered respectful bows. But the most important thing wasn't the external recognition. It was what happened in that office every afternoon when the most feared Iron Emperor in the realm put aside state documents and weighty decisions to teach a 7-year-old girl how to move ivory pieces across a checkered board. It was the way he asked about her day, how he genuinely cared about her answers, how he laughed at her jokes, even the ones that weren't very funny. It was the way he had begun to look at her, no longer as a stranger who had saved his life, but as someone who belonged there, someone who mattered, someone who was becoming increasingly important to him. 6 months passed. Winter came and went. Spring blossomed in the estate gardens. The days grew longer, filled with sunshine and promise. And then came Victor's trial. Eleanor didn't want to go. The thought of seeing the man who had threatened to kill her again made her stomach churn, but Mr. Blackwood asked her to be there. "You don't have to do anything," he explained gently. "Just be there." So he sees the little girl he underestimated, the little one he dismissed. Miss Hawthorne was furious at the suggestion. "She's just a child, Your Majesty. She shouldn't have to face that monster again." But Eleanor, to everyone's surprise, agreed. "I want to go," she said, her voice firm, despite the fear that she felt inside. "I want him to know that I'm not invisible, not anymore." The great trial hall was packed. Nobles, generals, representatives from other realms. Everyone wanted to see the fate of the man who had tried to assassinate the Iron Emperor. Victor was brought in chains. His eyes were sunken, his skin pale from imprisonment. But when he saw Eleanor sitting in the front row, next to Ms. Hawthorne and Marcus, something flickered in his eyes. Hate. Pure and absolute. Eleanor felt a shiver run down her spine, but she didn't look away. She met his gaze straight on. Mr. Blackwood rose from his throne. His voice echoed through the hall as he read the charges: treason, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted regicide, threats against an innocent child. Victor was given a chance to defend himself, but instead of pleading for mercy, he laughed. "You think it's over, Blackwood." He spat the words. "You may kill me, but others will come. The Volkov clan never forgets, never forgives. Your little rat may have saved you once, but she won't always be there." Mr. Blackwood didn't respond with anger. He didn't shout, didn't threaten. Instead, he looked at Eleanor and smiled. A small, almost sad smile. "You see this girl, Victor," he said, his voice calm, like still water. "This girl you called no one. This girl you threatened to kill. This 7-year-old girl did what your entire clan couldn't do. She saved me, with nothing but courage and intelligence." He stepped down from the throne and walked until he stood between Victor and Eleanor. "And you know what the most ironic thing is?" he continued, his voice rising with intensity. "She's the daughter of Alexei Sokolov, the man who saved my life 5 years ago, the man your clan murdered." Victor's face paled. He seemed to shrink before their eyes. "Yes," Mr. Blackwood continued. "Fate has a cruel sense of humor, doesn't it? You killed her father, and his daughter destroyed your plans." The silence in the hall was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. "Victor Volkov, for treason against the crown and attempted assassination. You are sentenced to life imprisonment in the northern dungeons. You will spend the rest of your days remembering that you were defeated by a 7-year-old child who you thought was too insignificant to notice. Victor was dragged away, screaming curses in Russian. Eleanor didn't understand all the words, but it didn't matter. She had won. She had stood up to him, face to face, after the trial. Mr. Blackwood found her in the gardens. She was sitting in her favorite spot, near the fountain, staring at the water without really seeing it. "Are you all right?" he asked, and sitting down beside her. Eleanor paused before answering. "I thought I would feel different," she admitted. "Happy, maybe, or relieved." "And how do you feel?" "Sad." She looked at him, her eyes too wise for a 7-year-old. "Sad that people like that exist, that they hate so much that they want to destroy everything around them." Mr. Blackwood nodded slowly. "You're right to be sad, but you can also have hope." "Hope in what?" "That there are people like you, too. People who choose courage over fear, compassion over hate. Those people make the world worth fighting for." Eleanor thought about that for a long moment. Do you think my father was like that?" she asked finally. Her voice was barely a whisper. Mr. Blackwood smiled. "I know he was, and you're just like him." A year after the night that changed everything. Eleanor was in the garden drawing when Mr. Blackwood approached. "What are you drawing?" he asked, sitting down beside her on the stone bench. The sun warmed their faces, and the birds sang sweetly in the trees. Maya held out the drawing. It was a portrait of her grandmother, done from memory. The woman who had taught her Russian. The woman who had given her the courage to face the impossible. "She looks wise," Drevin said, studying the drawing intently. "She was," Maya replied. "She always said I was stronger than I seemed. She was right." Maya looked at the man beside her. The Iron Emperor, the ruler of the realm, the man who had become something she never expected. A father figure. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. "Always." "Why did you start to cry when you found out about my dad?" Draven was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. "Because I carried the guilt for 5 years, the guilt of being alive, while a good man had died for me. And when I discovered he had left a family, that his daughter had grown up without a father, because of me." He closed his eyes tightly. It was like the wound opened again. A bigger, this time, deeper. Maya thought about this for a moment. "My grandmother used to say, the deepest wounds are the ones that remind us to keep living," she said finally. "Because if it didn't hurt so much, it would mean it didn't matter." Draven looked at her with something akin to wonder. "Your grandmother was very wise." "I know." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the birds flitting about in the garden. "Do you miss him?" Maya asked. "My dad?" Draven nodded. "Every day. He was one of the few men I trusted completely. One of the few true friends I've ever had." Maya reached out and took his hand. "He would be happy," she said, "knowing you're taking care of us." Draven squeezed her hand back. "I hope so." That evening, as the sun began to set over Blackwood Estate, Draven did something he had never done before. He told Maya about his wife. "Her name was Isabella," he said, his voice as soft as velvet. "She was the kindest woman I ever knew. She had eyes the color of honey, and a smile that could light up any room." Maya listened in silence. She knew the emperor was a widower. The whole estate knew. But no one ever spoke about the queen who had died so many years ago. "We met when I was still a prince," Draven continued. "She was the daughter of a nobleman from the south. She came to a party at the estate, and I saw her dancing under the stars in the garden, and I knew, at that moment, that I would spend the rest of my life trying to make her smile." "What happened to her?" Maya asked quietly. Draven closed his eyes. "A fever. It came out of nowhere and took her in 3 days. I had the best doctors in the realm. I had all the gold in the world. But none of it mattered." He was silent for a moment. "After she died, I shut myself off, pushed everyone away. I thought if I didn't let anyone get close, I would never feel that pain again. I built walls around myself, higher than the walls of the estate." "And did it work?" Maya asked. "For a while." Draven looked at her with eyes filled with an emotion she couldn't quite name. "But you know what I discovered? That the pain doesn't lessen when you shut people out. It just turns into loneliness. And loneliness, sometimes, hurts even more." Maya pondered his words. She knew loneliness. Years of being invisible had taught her well. "What changed?" she asked. Draven smiled. "A 7-year-old girl barged into my meeting room and told me in Russian that someone was going to kill me." Maya laughed, a genuine laugh that echoed through the garden. "You know what I realized that night?" Draven continued. "That I had forgotten what it was like to be truly seen. Not as a king, not as a monster, but as a person. And you looked at me that way. With fear, yes, but also with determination, with courage. And in that moment, something inside me woke up from a very long sleep." He placed his hand over hers. "You reminded me what it means to have a family, Maya. You and your mother. And I am eternally grateful for that." Maya felt tears streaming down her cheeks, but they were good tears, tears of belonging. "Do you think she'd be happy?" she asked. "Queen Isabella, if she could see the 3 of us together." Draven smiled, and there was peace in his eyes. "I know she would be. She always wanted children, always dreamed of a big, loud family. And I think, somehow, she brought us together, from wherever she is." Maya looked up at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me, for taking us in, for being." Maya hesitated, searching for the right word. "For being family." Draven pulled her into a hug. The kind of hug that fathers give their children. The kind of hug that Maya hadn't felt since her own father had died. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saving me. In more ways than one." The girl who no one saw was sitting in the garden of Blackwood Estate, beside the most powerful man in the realm. The late afternoon sun painted the sky in shades of gold and rose. The birds sang in the trees, and for the first time in a long time, everything felt exactly as it should be. Maya had learned something that year, something that her grandmother had always known, but that she was only just beginning to understand. That being small doesn't mean being weak. That being overlooked doesn't mean not mattering. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. And that, sometimes, the smallest among us carry the greatest courage. You have 2 choices now: Forget this story, or accept that the invisible ones around us might be the very people who change our lives forever, because the girl who no one saw was now seen by the most powerful man in the realm. And she had proven that the size of the heart matters much more than the size of the body. Maya looked up at the golden sunset sky and smiled. She finally had a family, and that was all she had ever wanted. Years later, when Maya had grown into a wise and courageous young woman, she would tell this story to her own children. She would tell them about the night that an invisible girl saved a king, about the dark tunnel and the menacing guards, about the note in Russian and the scream that shattered the silence. But most of all, she would tell them about how she learned the most important lesson of her life. That sometimes being small is the biggest advantage. That sometimes being overlooked allows you to see what others don't. And that sometimes the most unlikely person can change the destiny of a kingdom. Her grandmother was right after all. She was small on the outside, but her heart was the size of a bear, and no kingdom could ask for a better guardian. And if you've made it this far, you now know the truth. The people who change the world aren't always the strongest, the richest, or the most powerful. Sometimes they're just the bravest, the ones who refuse to be invisible when it matters most. Maya was one of them. And maybe you are too.